Hello everyone, and I'm back with yet another video on the topic of casino affiliate marketing. And in this video, I'm going to talk about why and how the casino operators are able to pay such high commissions for the traffic or the players that we are sending them. Because if you are comparing casino affiliate marketing to a lot of other niches, it might actually sound a bit too good to be true. But in reality, it is actually not too good to be true. It can actually surprise you more and more the further along you get. And also, obviously, the more traffic you have, the more leverage you have in being able to negotiate even better deals with the operators. Keep in mind that casino affiliate marketing is for the most part performance-based. So even if you get the biggest and the highest deals you can from a casino operator, if you are not sending them any traffic, you're basically not going to make any money. So it's not going to be free money for you. It is going to be based on how you perform. But the deals that you can get from the operators can be very high, even if you don't have that much traffic to send them. And that is the amazing part with casino affiliate marketing. Also keep in mind that casino affiliate marketing is not a secret hack. It is not in any way easy to reach these high numbers, but I can promise you that once you do, you're going to be amazed, hopefully, with how much money you can actually make with casino affiliate marketing. And also I quickly want to mention that depending on what type of marketing strategy you are using, the margins on your revenue can be very high, especially if you're using SEO, because you are working with indirect costs and not direct costs. So if you're interested in learning more about this, just keep watching this video. And if you are new to the channel, if you don't know who I am, my name is Adam. I've been working with casino affiliate marketing for almost going into 9 years now, almost 10 years anniversary for me. I think I'm going to work with this until I retire, probably, because it's a lot of money to be made in this, and also because I think that it is very fun, and I also really believe in this industry. It's a very powerful industry to be in. Enough talking about that stuff, and let's go into the slides. So I quickly wanted to refresh how the commission structure works in case you haven't seen any of my other videos on this topic. Like I mentioned before, it is going to be results-based, so you cannot make any money if you are not sending any players to the casinos, which is the whole purpose of affiliate marketing. With that being said, you can still monetize your traffic in different ways. You can be maybe on the lower end of negotiating your deals, and you can also be in the higher end of negotiating your deals, so you can make more money on the same type of traffic, basically, if you learn how to negotiate better deals for your websites with the operators that you want to work with. I go through this in many other YouTube videos, so you just go to the channel and scroll down and you will find videos about how to negotiate with the operators. But the three main deals are revenue share, which is basically a percentage of on the generated revenue that casino is making on the player that you're sending. CPA is a cost per acquisition deal, which basically means that you are getting a fixed amount for every player that you're sending. Usually there's also a baseline involved, so you're not going to get 100 euro if you send a player that is just depositing 1 euro. Usually they have to deposit around 20 euros maybe. So this basically means that if you are sending a player that makes a deposit of 50 euro, they're going to give you 100 euro if your CPA is 100. If you're sending a player that is depositing 20 euro, they're still going to pay you 100 euro. But then also on the flip side, if you're sending a player that deposits, 5,000 euro, you're still going to get 100 euros. But the deal I like the most is the hybrid deal, which is basically a mix of revenue share and CPA. So you're getting a bit lower for revenue share, and also maybe a bit lower of a CPA, but you are getting both of them. So let's say that you are sending a player that makes a 100 euro deposit and your CPA is 100 and your revenue share is 50%. And let's make it easy without any admin fees. You're basically going to get 100 euro from the CPA and also 50 euro from the revenue share of a player that makes a deposit of 100 euro. And now you might start to ask yourself, why would the casino want to pay you more than they are making from the player? And that is the exact thing I'm going to answer in this video, so just keep watching. Basically, it's the Pareto principle, which is a pretty interesting principle that is kind of easy to apply to most things. But in online casino, I actually have a lot of friends that are on the operator side. I have friends that owns casinos, and I'm using the 80-20 rule here, but I think, to be honest, that it's even more, even like 90-10 or 95-5, that the casinos are making 90% of their revenue from probably less than 10% of their player base. And these players are called high rollers or whales, and they are generating most of the revenue. So that is why casinos are focusing so much on having a very good customer retention team that is very good at getting bigger players basically to deposit even more money. And maybe they don't really care too much about the players that are depositing lower amounts of money. So what they're doing basically is that they're churning through all of these players that people are sending them in the hopes that they're going to get one really big player that they can make a lot of money from. And then they can retarget this player with better, incentives, bonuses, and, stuff like that. So in short, like I just mentioned, they don't mind paying a premium on most of their players that you're sending them just because they're waiting for one of the bigger players that you're going to send them. So I think that this is one of the biggest reasons that they don't really mind overpaying or paying big commissions on the players that you're sending them. And also keep in mind, I didn't really mention it, but the player has to make a deposit. They actually have to deposit money in order for basically any of this to trigger any of the commission to work. There are some instances where you can also make money on a sign up. That is usually called a CPL, which is a cost per lead. So you can, in some cases, get a small amount of money from signups as well. I actually had one deal once with a CPL deal. I think I got €10 for every sign up on a no deposit offer. And I was sending them crazy amounts of signups. So I actually made quite a lot of money from that. But to be honest, I think that they made even more because this casino was really good at retargeting all of the signups that I sent them. So for them, I think it was kind of like a win-win. Maybe I would have made more money if I was on a revenue share deal or a CPA. But at that point, I was making enough money with them, so I didn't really care. The next one is exposure and brand recognition. Many casinos, especially the biggest ones, it is the same thing as basically paying for advertisement. Even if they are paying you more than what they are making from the deal, they're also getting exposure on your website. They're also getting brand recognition. So all of the people that are visiting your website, even if they don't decide to deposit on this specific casino, the players are still seeing the logo, they're seeing the bonuses, they're starting to trust the brand even more. I think there's some marketing terms or sayings that says that customer has to see a brand like 7 times before they start to trust it. So let's say that they are listed on 7 different websites. On the 8th one, maybe then they feel like, oh, maybe I should try this casino because I've seen it listed everywhere. That is also one of the reasons. This is also one of the reasons that usually they don't mind overpaying for flat fees, which is basically a fixed cost of maybe a position one or a banner deal or something like that, just because they want the brand recognition and the exposure. And also, obviously, it's a mix with brand recognition, exposure, and this 80-20 rule, and maybe also one of the other points that I'm going to mention soon. So we have the 80-20 rule, and we also have this exposure recognition kind of thing that might allow the casinos for overpaying for the traffic that you're sending. We also have to keep in mind when we're talking about this, especially when we're talking about the revenue share, is that, let's say that you are splitting it, like you are getting 50% revenue share. It's not that black and white, because on a revenue share deal, both you usually have admin fees that can go up to like 20-30%. So your actual revenue share is not going to be 50%, it's going to be a bit lower. Maybe it's going to be around 40%, 35%. And also keep in mind that you don't really have to pay for any of the other costs that it costs the casino to basically host the player on the website. You don't have to pay the payment providers, the licensing, the payment providers, and also you never have to pay when a player wins, and that is something that the casino has to do. But as an affiliate, we have other costs as well. We have to pay for our hosting, we have to pay for content, backlinks, and stuff like that. So the next one is called cross-selling. I don't know how common this is, because this is something that is never really, spoken of, especially not from the operators, because I feel like this is something that is a bit more on the shady side. And what happens here is that casinos often cross-sell players that you are referring across their own casino brands, which obviously increases the lifetime value of a single player while cutting out the affiliate from the revenue. So how this works is that, let's say that a casino has one brand that is listed on your website, and you send them maybe 100 players, and the owner of this casino has maybe 5 other casinos. So what happens when a player signs up to their casino, they're getting their email address and stuff like that. So they can start marketing their other casinos to this player. And when they do this, obviously you're not going to get your referral fee for this. You're not going to get your commission. So that is why they don't really mind paying a bit more for the initial deposit on their first casino if they have other casinos that the same player is going to start depositing on. And this is called cross-selling. There are a lot of casinos, I'm not going to mention any names here because we can never be 100% sure if they're doing this, but there are a lot of operators that are doing this. If you are inside of my community, you can ask me about these operators and maybe I will make a list in the community as well for the ones that are potentially cross-selling. Then again, if we're making enough money from this casino anyway, maybe we don't really care, but I feel like this is something that is a bit unethical. The next one would be revenue over profits, and especially with publicly listed casinos that are focusing more on basically the top line revenue growth to attract their investors. Maybe they are listed on some stock exchange. They want their numbers to look more impressive rather than having a high profit margin. So I've seen this a lot. I actually remember one time there was some acquisition many years ago of one brand. So they wanted to really boost their revenue. So they gave me a very unrealistic deal with one of their brands just because they wanted to boost the numbers. And they didn't really care if they were losing a lot of money on this deal, as long as I could send them as many players that I could for maybe 1 or 2 months. And this is not only in casino, this is basically in every industry. To be honest, I'm not 100% how listed companies work, but I know that this might be one of the reasons that they are overpaying for the traffic. Another one is that they have monthly or quarterly budgets on flat fees. I know this from basically inside information because I have a lot of affiliate managers that are my very good friends. And it has happened actually sometimes, maybe 1 or 2, especially with some affiliate managers that I'm very close to, that they come to me at the end of a quarter or at the end of a month and say, hey, Adam, we have some budget over for flat fees and I want to avoid a surplus, basically that they don't want to say that they didn't spend all of the money, so they are buying flat fees from me and they pay a price that is higher than they would maybe otherwise pay just because they have money left to spend for that quarter or a month. So this is a real thing, maybe not as common, but it is. Also, I can add something else here is that let's say that you're going to a conference where there's a bunch of different casinos and they have been paying a lot to maybe fly all of their employees there, and they paid a lot to have the booth as well. They are, I feel, more prone to spend money on these conferences because they've already put in all of the work in getting there, so they want to get some results out of it. So in these cases, I feel like they're also overpaying especially for flat fees. So I always recommend people to go to the conferences because they are both very fun and they also can be very profitable if you're good at negotiating good deals on the spot. And also, obviously, you get to meet the people that you're working with, and that is also usually very fun. The next time is long-term growth. It actually ties together a bit with the next one, but I'm going to talk about this one first. High commissions reflect the long-term value of acquiring loyal players. So once acquired, these players often generate consistent recurring revenue for years. So that is maybe why they are more prone to pay maybe a CPA or a hybrid deal, because they have to put up the money in the beginning, but then if they're really good at, retaining their players on their platform, they can make a very steady income for the long-term future. So I think it ties into this one maybe it didn't really tie into this one, but high competition between operators. I've said this a lot, and this is something that since I started 9 years ago is still the same. There's way more operators than there are marketers, so they are fighting for the traffic. So that means that we can be a bit more aggressive with our negotiation, especially if there is in a market where there's a really high demand for marketing opportunities. So I added here as well, especially if they already have high operational costs. So let's say that you launch a casino, you have all of this staff, you have your customer support, you're paying for expensive licensing, and you're paying for the game providers, and you don't have any traffic. Then maybe you become a bit desperate. You really need to start getting some players. So maybe you're ready to spend more on the marketing in the beginning so you basically already have all of these other things that are costing you money, but they are not really doing anything because you don't have your players yet. So maybe at that point, you are willing to pay a premium on the traffic. Maybe the operators at this point are getting a bit desperate. I think this is the last one, but I think it's lack of marketing opportunities for unregulated casinos. I think we talked about this in one of the community's Q&As as well, that a lot of unregulated casinos, the ones that are basically, they're not operating without a license, they're basically just not operating with the correct license for a country. They cannot really use maybe Google, Facebook, or other like legacy media, such as TV advertisement or maybe, sports games and stuff like that. So they are very heavily relying on affiliates to drive traffic. So I've noticed this a lot. If I'm working with unregulated casinos, they are way more willing to pay higher CPAs and hybrids than the brands that are already relying maybe on legacy media. So maybe we can recap this a bit fast. I rarely do this, but maybe I should start. So basically we have the 80-20 rule, which makes a lot of sense. We have this exposure and brand recognition that I also think kind of makes a lot of sense. Maybe I would do this myself if I was an operator. Also, obviously, depending on the budget, if they have a big budget to spend on brand recognition, they would probably do so. And also, like I mentioned, I think it's the bigger brands that are doing this, especially the ones in regulated markets. Cross-selling, maybe it's not that common, but I do think it's happening. And even if it's happening, we will never know about it, basically. Revenue over profit, like I mentioned before, if you're a listed company, maybe you care more about your revenue growth than you care about your immediate profit. The monthly budgets as well. We also have the long-term growth. It also kind of makes sense. And the high competition also makes sense. And lack of marketing opportunity for unregulated casinos. So yeah, I think actually, wait, I'm going to switch. So if you have ever wondered why the operators can pay this much in commission, I really hope that this video answered some of your questions. One thing that I didn't mention that is maybe the biggest thing is that, especially if you are running SEO traffic, this is the most sought after traffic that the operators are looking for. And this traffic is actually very valuable. They would never pay too much of a premium of your traffic if they didn't believe that they are going to make money on your traffic. And this obviously also means that you are going to make a lot of money on the traffic because, like I mentioned, also it is somewhat performance-based. So the better you perform, the more money you and the more money the operator is going to make. So until I see you in my next video, I also want to mention that if you want to talk to me, if you want to have a free one-on-one call with me, you can book a call with me through the link in the description. If you have any questions about this, or if you have any questions on anything else regarding casino affiliate marketing. So until next time, I see you soon. Bye-bye.